Hello, and welcome to the FiveM development tutorial series. Today we'll be going over manipulating vehicle entities. This was originally going to be a part of a larger episode about entity manipulation in its entirety. However, I felt like both vehicles and pad manipulation have their own unique properties that it would be better to split them off into two separate videos. So make sure to subscribe to get notified when that next episode involving pad manipulation comes out. Today our goal is to use a command to spawn a vehicle and then mod the vehicle with different colors and upgrades. In our last video we covered how to register commands in C#, so make sure to watch that video if you don't know how to register a command. So we want to create a vehicle whenever /v is typed in a chat. For this task, let's create a new model. Now a model is any 3D model in game. It could be a vehicle, an object, or a pet. We just need to pass the hash value to this model so it could properly load. For now, let's just spawn a Zentorno. Now let's call await.world create vehicle, and then let's pass our model variable and the player's position and then the heading of the player. Now Visual Studio is saying that there's an error here. That's because we're trying to call await without using a sync. So let's add a sync to this lambda here and the error should go away. Now that it appears to be fine, let's also print a quick message so we know that it's working. Now let's compile and test it out. So when we type /v, the correct vehicle model spawns on top of the player. It's a little weird for it to be spawning on top of it, so let's quickly change the code for it to spawn in front of the player instead. Let's head back to the code and change game.playerped.position to game.playerped.getOffsetPosition. Make sure not to use getPositionOffset since those take absolute coordinates and we want to pass the coordinates relative to the player. Now let's make sure it spawns 5 meters in front of the player. To do this, we put a +5 in the y-axis of the coordinates. Let's compile and restart. Now that our vehicle is no longer crushing us, let's try getting into it. Now when we get into it, we can see that we're delayed with the vehicle requiring to be hotwired. Let's head back to the code and fix that. All we need to do now is assign the vehicle to a variable and then change ved.needs to be hotwired to false. Let's compile, and when we hop in game and retry the command, it no longer requires us to hotwire it. Now I don't really care for these colors, so let's try changing them. By calling ved.mods, we have access to the color palette of the vehicle now. We can set the primary, secondary, and pearlescent color of the vehicle like this. Let's set it to predefined values for now. Let's recompile and see if our vehicle now has the new colors. Now adding upgrades to a vehicle is somewhat tricky. At first the upgrades it should have are not yet loaded to the vehicle, so to load them in, let's call ved.mods.installModKit. This will load all the available upgrades to the vehicle that we can now modify. At the moment, we don't yet know what upgrades are available to this car except for the engine, brakes, and transmission. All vehicles will have these upgrades, so let's try boosting those values up to the max. Let's compile and test it out. Alright, so when we spawn the vehicle now, we can see it's pretty fast and the brakes on it are pretty good. However, there's plenty of other mods which aren't just related to performance. So let's add a way for specifying those values. Let's go to the code and create a new command /mod. This will allow us to add upgrades to the vehicle through commands. Now let's get the current vehicle the player's in. Let's validate the vehicle and that the player has given us 2 arguments to our command. Now let's grab the first argument, which will be the mod type name, and then the second argument, which will be the mod index. Since we don't know the vehicle mod type which corresponds to this name, we need to iterate over all possible enum values and check if the enum name matches the user input. If it does, let's set the vehicle mod index to the user input. We don't want to go outside of the range of 0 or the mod count -1, so let's use mathUtil.clamp to define a range. Then let's add a chat message confirming the mod upgrade we did was installed. Now one more thing to do is list the available mods on vehicle spawn. So let's use string.join to print the list, and the list we'll be printing will be ved.mods.getAllMods, and then we'll be parsing the mods into their enum names for display. Let's compile the code and test it out. When we spawn the vehicle, it lists all the mods, so let's try doing /mod hood 10. It updates the hood to the max value since 10 is higher than the maximum range in our clamp. So let's set it to a lower value. Now let's try the spoilers. It seems to be working as intended. The last thing we're going to be going over is toggleable mods. There are a few toggleable mods which are available for all vehicles. At the moment, there's smoke, turbo, and xenon headlights. So let's get these values and then set is installed to true. Let's do this for the turbo and xenon headlights and then compile. Now let's head in game. And now when we spawn the vehicle, we can see that the headlights are of a brighter bluer tint, and when we accelerate, flames spit out from the back indicating turbo is installed. Now that's all we're going to be covering in this video. There are more mods available to install to the vehicle, such as neon underglow or license plates, however I feel like the rest of the values are self-explanatory. So thank you for watching this tutorial. If you'd like to support this channel and the work I do, check out my Patreon. The support I get from Patreon helps pay for the software needed to produce these tutorials. There's also a lot of neat incentives for patrons, such as early access to mods and videos. If you like this tutorial, make sure to leave a thumbs up. If you struggle with anything, make sure to leave a comment below or join our Discord, where we have an awesome community of modders helping each other out and sharing their cool projects. Thanks for sticking to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next video where we cover AI and PED manipulation.